Data centers are coming. Modern computing, artificial intelligence, the future economy, these things will require data centers to be built in this country. The challenge, of course, is where do we build them? We have seen many Oklahoma communities in recent weeks issue moratoriums on new data center projects. In Yukon, a project is already in the works, $1 billion data center development on nearly 200 acres on the western edge of the city, north of I-40. Vocal opposition has increased with this. There's a recall effort that has been gathering signatures. The deadline to turn them in was this week. And at Tuesday's tense city council meeting, residents asked city leaders and Mayor Brian Pillmore to resign.
We've been 2 years getting to where we're at tonight, and finally, the people are going to be heard. The people have been ignored for 2 years, and that's not going to happen anymore. We've exceeded the number that is required. The way the code is written, the number required is 1449, which we have exceeded. We have in excess of that amount, and we continue to collect signatures as we speak.
I know it's not on the agenda, but if I were you, I would really think about resigning, because what you've done is not been in the best interest of the community that you swore to protect. Shame on you.
I have very little else to say on that other than I urge you to resign, Mayor Pillmore.
And we are grateful this week to have Yukon Mayor Brian Pillmore joining us for Oklahoma Chronicle. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Evan.
I promise I'm not going to yell, all right? You probably got enough of that this past week, but I do want to ask questions, some tough questions about, the types of things that people are wanting to know. And I think when it comes down to it, I'm hearing the same sorts of questions over and over again when it comes to this project. One question I hear about with this is transparency. I know that there are accusations that this deal came together in the background without the public really knowing about it until it was a done deal. Is there truth to that?
I think sometimes that's the perception, but the reality is every single consequential decision that we make is done in public, in front of the public, and we've had record engagement in the city of Yukon. The public sees that. The first action related to this data center was in late March of 2025, and there have been other consequential actions in each council meeting that we held. All of those were done in public. Of course, the city staff had discussions, as they do if you were going to develop a restaurant or buy a building or something. Of course, city staff has meetings with developers at all times. But in terms of consequential actions that actually change the direction of the city or our decision making on zoning, all of that occurs in the public eye.
What's the situation with the NDA that I've heard so much about that people with the city supposedly had to sign? Is there an NDA in effect right now?
There is not one that's in effect right now. The prior city manager did sign an NDA. That was not a decision that the council made. He signed that unilaterally in the course of business. And every council member that's currently sitting, and also on the prior council that was sitting as soon as 2 months ago, all vowed that we have not signed NDAs. Mm-hmm. I have not signed an NDA, and that we will not sign NDAs. So all the latest council members that just joined, that question has not been asked of the latest 3 council members. But I think in general, our council opposes signing NDAs, and in fact, NDAs under the Oklahoma Open Meetings Act are essentially in some ways null and void. If you were to come to the city of Yukon and request a document that pertains to development,
like an Open Records Act or something like that,
you would receive that document.
Well, let's talk about the argument for a data center here in Yukon. Specifically, I know this would be a moneymaker for the city.
I laid it out very clearly last night.
Well, lay it out again here.
Yeah.
And we're talking, you say last night, we're talking on Wednesday.
Oh, I'm
the
sorry.
meeting was on Tuesday. No, it's fine. This is airing on Sunday. The recall petition is due on Thursday. Yeah. Things are moving right now.
Yeah.
But so lay it out for me again, because I want to know what is the ceiling.
Yep.
And what is the floor when it comes to what sort of investment this can bring to Yukon? Yeah. And then we could talk about why that money is important.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. So To make it very simple, there's a one-time land sale at a record high price within the city of Yukon. That's $85,000 an acre for 184 and a half acres, about $15.7 million.
And this is land owned by the city?
Owned by the Yukon Municipal Authority, which is a public trust owned by the city of Yukon.
Okay.
Okay. So that's one.
That's a one-time
That's
thing.
a one-time.
Okay.
But those dollars will be invested by the city council with input from citizens into quality of life improvements, infrastructure improvements, public safety improvements, great things that citizens will feel and that citizens want and need that they've asked for. Things like a renovation and expansion to our community center, things like indoor aquatics, things like enhancements to our wastewater treatment facility, exploration of additional water sources for drinking water for our citizens.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's one time. Then on an ongoing basis, there's other sources of revenue, the most significant of which is franchise tax. Franchise tax, the simplest way to describe it, is like a sales tax on the sale of electrons delivered to your home or your business.
And that's where I'm seeing that there would be a range, correct?
Yes.
Now I've seen, is the floor, what is the floor there?
Yeah, initially I said the floor was $8 million a year, but that was prior to the most recent legislation that Oklahoma Representative Bowles put in place.
Okay.
And that the legislature passed in this last session that makes data centers in line with President Trump's initiative to have hyperscale data centers pay their fair share on. There's no sweetheart deals.
So how much money are we talking?
16 million is my back of the envelope estimate.
That's the floor?
Floor.
How much franchise tax is the city bringing in right
1
now?
million.
1 million. So that would be a 16x.
Yeah, 16x growth in that. It would be about a 75% increase to the city's revenue. These are shocking numbers.
I mean, it's a big number, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
Anything and everything that
Would that change Yukon?
would-
Would that
simple-
change the way Yukon would operate, though, and how it would be like to live there?
The simplest way I put it to a citizen where we were sitting down and having coffee is, this is Garth Brooks Boulevard number 2.
Okay.
That's a simple way to understand it. If Garth Brooks Boulevard, which used to be known as 11th Street, wasn't developed between the 1970s and the 2010s,
Sure.
what would Yukon be?
Right.
We have 260 full-time employees at the city of Yukon. We have full streets department, wastewater, we have world-class police department, fire department. 200 of our 260 employees would not be employed by the city of Yukon if we didn't have the revenue that comes from Garth Brooks Boulevard.
And this is
Garth Brooks Boulevard number 2.
Gotcha. All right, let's keep moving here because I want to ask you about water. You brought it up because, as I understand it, obviously, Yukon has a contract with Oklahoma City for drinking water,
That's
correct?
right.
And that's for the next few years. And I've heard that you guys are exploring other options right now, kind of looking for a long-term plan for the future, as so many communities are in Oklahoma.
We're looking
right
to
now.
diversify. Not to completely change our current plan, but to expand our sources of water.
Data centers take water, and I know that wouldn't be drinking water. There's a talk of gray water, recycled water, that sort of thing. But if we don't have if we haven't finalized what Yukon's water sources are going to be at this point, is it a responsible time to put forward a data center project?
Yeah,
if that's not all buttoned up.
Yeah. So there have been a lot of questions about the water usage of the data center, and as of late April, the city council, there were 2 meetings in late April that were 10 days apart. We were doing some other actions related to a TIF, but in those 2 meetings, the first meeting was a review of the water agreement draft with a potential data center developer, and the second meeting would have been to decide on that. The city council decided not to take action, and I don't believe the city council will take action on that water agreement. So
is this able to go forward without these agreements?
that depends on the
being made?
developer. So the developer has to decide, can they use an air-cooled system?
But if the developer decides they can't, does the project move forward? Does the project halt, or does it just look differently?
The project would likely halt if they decide that they're unwilling to move forward without a water agreement.
So all that is still ahead. Water has to be lined up in order for the deal to move forward, is what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is that the developer can decide to move forward without water.
Gotcha.
And use an air-cooled system.
You are, as I mentioned, facing a recall effort right now. You had people, as we showed, standing up to your face saying, please resign, sir. What is your salary?
Zero.
So there's no salary for this job. So somebody from the outside might be looking and be like, why sit there? Why take that? Do you have any plans to resign? Because your vice mayor recently resigned.
Yeah, I said it last night, and then I had some citizens text me in support and said, we're making T-shirts. My exact quote last night was, "It's not on the agenda." So they were making T-shirts that say, "Will you resign?" And then my quote, "It's not on the agenda."
So what do you make of this recall effort against you?
I fully support every U.S. constitutional right, state constitutional right, and city charter right of any citizen. And our city charter prescribes a method by which citizens can hold their leaders accountable and go through a recall process. It's a very disciplined process, and I encourage any citizen to use all their rights under the city charter.
But for people, and I know that there's people going out there going door to door. You know, we have here in our newsroom, we have Yukon residents working for KOCO, of course, and people have come to their door to talk to them, trying to get them to sign and things like that. For people who are maybe just starting to pay attention to this, just 30 seconds here, what's your message to them as they're starting to pay more attention?
Yeah, my message is look at the proof. The proof is in the pudding. Look at what's been done in the city of Yukon, in your neighborhood, the streets that you drive on, the public safety investments we've made with world-class training centers for fire and police, the continued investment. We put $11 million into our wastewater treatment plant in the last 2 years, and only $2 million had been invested over the last 20 years. The plant was half broken when we came in and toured it on my first week in office. We have built 9 playgrounds. 8 of those were delivered in the last 9 months for less than $70,000 a playground. The proof is in the pudding.
Okay, Mayor Brian Pillmore, Mayor of Yukon. I know this is a hot button issue, and I appreciate you taking the time to come and talk to us.
Thanks so much, Evan. Great to be with you.